G'day and welcome to Yoga for Runners. Thanks for joining me at CFB Halifax. My name is David Carr and I'll be guiding you through 45 minutes of yoga warm-ups, workouts, and stretches that will help you be a stronger runner. This is in response to COVID-19, where PSB is offering virtual fitness to Canadian Armed Forces members. By using social media platforms, the virtual fitness classes tailored to Canadian Armed Forces personnel become accessible to all. Participants who are not Canadian Armed Forces members recognize and acknowledge that their age, health status, and physical fitness level are unknown, and it is entirely up to each individual to assess their ability to participate in this class. Since it is preferable to consult your physician before beginning any exercise program, we invite all participants who are not Canadian Armed Forces members to consult the Get Active questionnaire of the Canadian Society of Exercise Physiology. If you experience any pain or difficulty during the exercises presented in this video, it is recommended that you stop and consult a healthcare provider. And if CAF members sustain an injury during this video, please remember to fill out a CF98. So you don't need anything but your mat, a place to practice. Bring some water and take water whenever you need, just in case. If you ever feel overwhelmed or need a break at any time, that's the beauty of virtual fitness. You can pause the video, you can go back, you can rewatch, you can redo whenever you're ready. So come and join me. We're all runners here, and we usually run into issues from the ground up. All the miles impact our feet, ankles, knees, and hips. So we're going to build a practice that balances and aligns these issues. So start with mountain pose, Tadasana, where we can find alignment in a stationary position. Building on the arches of the feet, lift up all 10 of your toes and spread them out as wide as you can. Gently laying them down again so that you can feel activation, staying in the arch of your foot and joining the transverse arch, so across the pads of your toes, and that helps to lift up the ankles, knees, and hips, like I said. So from here, notice if your natural tendency is to knock the knees inwards or to splay the knees outwards, and rotate in either direction, because if there's tension, undue tension in the hips, then that's going to cause the knees to go out, and that's going to impact your running. Your stride is going to go outwards as well. So practicing yoga helps to make you aware of these imbalances and hold you accountable to them. Using the inner thighs, spiral back and feel your hips, your glutes kind of change their position. Now, I always focus from the hips. The hip bone is a nice bowl, so you can use that bowl to stay neutral. Notice if you're spilling your soup out the front or out the back, and try to hold that neutral position by firing up the abdominal wall, lifting the belly button in and up. And from there, we can stack the spine gently, one vertebra on top of another, shoulder blades together, palms open, hands wide. And then as if there's a string attached to the top of your head, lift up nice and tall. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Ha! Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Ha! This time in and out through the nose. One more time. Inhale, holding it in at the top. Exhale. Hold it out at the bottom. Take one more. Just getting anchored in that aligned position. With your hands on your hips, heels on your feet so they're hip width apart. And let your hips gently tip and rotate as you sit back into your chair pose. Sweep your arms up, shoulder height for this variation, and then plug your shoulder blades back. They usually get out of socket when our arms start to sweep. And strengthen your legs here. Getting nice and warm through the quads. Push your feet as if they're going to separate and feel the stretch through the glute. And match that inner rotation of the thigh so that there's a lot of torque here, down through your knees, into the ankles, into the floor. Sit a little bit lower. Take one more breath. this time come up out of your knees and balance on your toes. If you've ever suffered from plantar fasciitis, you know how important these muscles and tendons on the base of your foot are. We want to have strong calves, we want to have strong arches. So gently bend into the knees if it helps you lift your ankles up. And find your balance here. This is an awkward chair pose. So get used to the discomfort, get used to the wobble, and rise up out of the knees. This is good to do a couple of times, but we'll move on gently and then come back to it. Half moon, stretching the side body, making sure you can breathe all into the depth of your lungs. Pushing the ribs out to the side, grounding and anchoring your feet, remembering the inner spiral of your thighs to stabilize your hips and your low back. All of these areas get so much strain and tension built up over the course of a run, whether it's 1K, 5K, or 100K, you're putting the same impacts on your low back. Gently begin to switch sides. Squeezing your hands together, squeezing your shoulder blades together, keeps the arms active. Full body warm up. One more breath, look up slightly. And on the exhale, deepen the stretch. Inhale, back up. Like I mentioned, we're gonna revisit the chair pose. You can keep your arms overhead, whether the hands are together, or if that pinches the shoulders and traps up, widen your hands, widen your arms, roll your shoulder blades down. If you want, you can even heel toe your big toes back together and sit into the chair. If you take a peek over your knees, we don't want to over flex the ankles. Keep the knees back, and that's about balance between your calves and your shin muscles. You can challenge yourself to look up, you can challenge yourself to sit lower, whatever your body needs at the start of our practice. Just like a run, you want to start smart, start gentle, and let your body get tuned into this change of activity. So again, hands can stay up, or they can come down in front of your shoulders. Options are there, but I'll show you the other option. And lift up the heels onto your toes. Awkward pose 2. And try to keep all of your weight balanced across both feet. The legs will have a tendency to lean on the stronger, your dominant leg. Last breath. In and out through the nose. Okay, rise back up out of the knees. Drop your heels, drop your hands to your hips, and take a big step back with your foot. Turning to face the long edge of your mat now. We've activated. Let's get a little dynamic stretch going on. Soften the knees, and with a long spine, rotate the hips, maintaining the integrity of your hip and spine connection, your SI joint. Bring your fingertips to the ground. Good. You should already feel the stretch through the backs of your legs, maybe the backs of your knees, but try to keep your knees soft so there is a gentle amount of slack on the hamstrings. You're not going to hyperextend anything. And instead of trying to get deeper and change the position, change the look of our pose, try to activate to counter. Stretch the hamstrings back of your body, flex the front. So flex the biceps, bend the elbows a little bit more. Flex the quads, squeeze your kneecaps up a little bit higher. Squeeze your tummy, fold. Take 2 more breaths in and out. In and out. Finding neutral with your back if you're not already there. And if you want to use your water bottle or a block to bring the ground up a little closer to you, we're going to dynamically twist, reaching one arm up to the ceiling while the other hand stays planted, and alternate sides with your breath. So inhale on your way up, and exhale on your way down. And take one more on each side. then walk your hands up your legs, onto the hips. Pivot your heels in and balance the forces in your legs as you sit down into a squat, Upavashrasana. Now you can bring your hands to the insides of your knees to help them from collapsing, or you can hold your hands at heart center. And take your gaze down to your fingertips. Close your eyes. I'll challenge the balance a little bit. Keep pushing your knees out. This will come in handy later. Fire up your glutes. Sit a little lower. One more breath. Good. Rising up out of the knees. Bring your hands to your hips. And then pivot your back foot so it faces the front corner of your mat. And pivot your front foot so it faces the short edge of your mat. Now guiding the hips forwards. You may feel like you're spilling your soup out the front. Bend into your knee, stacking the knee over your ankle, and see if that helps. Tilt your tailbone down, and that rotation of the hip, again, that alignment of the hip and the shape of this posture, Virabhadrasana 1, Warrior 1, should give you that hip flexor sensation. If you've been running for any amount of time, you've tried to stretch the hip flexor, it's a very hard muscle to reach because of the way it wraps through your low back and runs deep down the inside of your thigh. But Warrior 1, I find, is a great multi-purpose for runners lunge because the grounding, move my water bottle so you can see, the grounding in my back foot, it's stretching my calf at a different than normal angle. And the calf muscles all work when we're running. So it's good to hit them in more than just the standard front to back angles. We're going to look at a couple more as we move through this sequence. And then the next thing I want to talk to you about is how your body is all connected. That's where yoga stems from, is this connection. Our whole body, head to toe, is all going to affect different parts in different ways. So we want to use that. The technical term is fascia. So that's almost like a plastic wrap of connective tissue that wraps around the muscles and bones, helps you to hug muscles to bones. And so that connective wrap is wrapping around your thigh, around your glutes, up your spine, up your back, and even all the way out your arms. So if you lift your hands up and begin to lift your chest up, you may feel an even deeper stretch come up your psoas or front of your thigh, maybe in the quad. You can interlace your fingers just like we had options in chair pose. You have options here. You can even take a side bend like we warmed up. That's enough time in Warrior 1. Let's open to Warrior 2. Hands are going to come down. Heel toe, a wider stance, taking up almost all of your mat. And just like in chair pose, we're pushing the feet apart. There's activity below the feet, through the tendons, through the ankles, through the toes. And lunge in. If you've lost that stack knee over ankle, find it again. And now that stretch, that deep stretch through the inner thigh, and that turn of your hips to face the long edge of your mat will change how the fascia extends the hip flexor, extends and stretches the inner thigh. All the while you're feeling this front leg, maybe it's getting a little shaky, maybe you can sit a little bit deeper. Notice if the knee is pulling in, and open that space out. Flipping the palms open, we can reach and extend this posture into an extended side angle. So again, using that sideward bending action, lifting up the obliques, pushing out your front knee, and grounding down, strengthening legs. Take a couple more breaths here. You may even feel this stretch transition to your IT band or the pocket of your hip. And then inhale, rise back up. Bring your hands onto your hips so that we can transition into our next pose. Heel toe, until we can lean the center of gravity over your front foot and lift off into a balance. Yeah, align, spiral your inner thighs back, support the hips, engage the core, and if you want, you can reach your arms back, or forwards with your ears to extend that fascial line and reach out your whole body. Breathe in, breathe out. One more time. Okay, bring the hands to the hips and the feet to the ground. Take a big step back with the other foot. Warrior one on the other side. So make sure the heels line up with each other and that we have stretch in the calf happening because of that angle in the back foot. Lift your toes up if you feel like your arches are starting to collapse. Keep them strong. And then lean in. Lift your core up, lift your hips steady. Inhale your hands up and breathe with me here. In through the nose, out through the nose. Spiral your thighs together and lift your heart up high. Hold it in at the top and let it go. Hold it out at the bottom and breathe. One more inhale. Exhale, open your stance, warrior two. And you might feel that one is more stable, one is wider than the other. That's fine, that's normal. We tend to favor our dominant leg. And I love this pose so much. It gets at the heart of yoga, of incorporating everything. Stretching, strengthening, extending the arms. Notice if you're pinching and getting stress in the neck, roll the shoulders down, turn your neck across your front finger, and you might even feel that stretch come across the back side of your neck. Smile, because we're getting stronger together, getting more balanced, so that we run into less injury. Take one more breath. Open your hands, leaning in and over the head, extended side angle. There's no rush to reach to the floor. We want to use this like a side plank, lifting the heart and hips up. Look up even. Don't shy away from the legs. Keep them strong even if they're shaky. One more breath. Then rise back up. Hands to the hips. Heel toe forwards. And find your center. Find your feet before you take off. And notice the first thing that runners want to do when this balance comes up is stack hip over hip. It's this weird fight to keep you both hips pointed forwards. Try not to let your leg come up or higher than your chest, so you don't want to fold in half. You want to teeter and totter and add that stretch to the hamstring as you can breathe through it. Your standing leg is doing all kinds of work here. One more time. Breathe in and out. Hands to hips. Rise back up and place your foot down. Now, if you went for a run yesterday, you might already be feeling the calves and the feet tense up from that balance. So you can do a ballerina stretch and tuck the toes under and push down on the toes. And we'll explore another toe stretch later on in this practice when we get to the ground sequence. We've got one more balance to do in the standing sequence, and that's an adjustment. So taking all of these back bending poses, all of these leg strengtheners, and this hip flexor stretch, and taking it a little bit farther than we might be used to. So open your palm and pick up your foot, so that you can use your thumb to massage the arch of your foot a little bit. That way you're holding it onto it the right way. And the kick down of your foot pulls back and opens a stretch in your chest. Counterbalance yourself by reaching your opposite arm up to the sky and keep it high as you can as you kick down like a classic quad stretch, but with this added bonus of lifting the knee back, lifting the toes up, to take that fascial line to its maximum. Align yourself forward, thigh to thigh, shoulder blades together. Lifting up with your standing leg, strong and proud. Take one last breath. Exhale to finish the kick back. And then guide yourself back to center. And again, if another ballerina stretch is warranted, you take it as you need. Opening the opposite hand for the other side. Scoop up and massage the arch of your foot and guide your knees into alignment so that we have that foundation to start from. Lifting the opposite hand up and kicking down. Now, it doesn't matter what your pose looks like, it's all about the feel. Activating the back of your body is going to help stretch out the front. So squeeze the shoulder blades together, squeeze the glutes a little bit. Lift your eyes upwards. Deep breath. For a deep stretch. Toes up a little bit higher. One more time. Lower your knee down. Place your feet together and find your Tadasana again. A huge difference has taken place in the body. So we want to center, feel out those differences. Notice any imbalances that we weren't aware of before. Maybe take a little sip of water. And then we'll move on. Inhale your hands up. We'll move to the floor with a Surya Namaskar. Exhale. Fold over the hips, soft knees, long spine. So you can push against the floor, your legs, or your hips to lengthen the body and keep that plank in your chest as you bend your knees, place your hands down, and find it on the floor. Take a full breath in and shift forwards over your wrists. It's a little bit of an uncomfortable stretch, but it'll help you keep your forearms vertical as you exhale and lower down to the ground. Modifying this sun salutation, lift your heart up to a cobra. No need to push with the hands. Ease yourself back down and lean back into a modified child's pose. Your head can go on the floor. Take a breath here. And then lift yourself forwards, curl your toes under, and walk up to the front of your mat. We're going to do another sun salutation with the opposite modification. Lift up halfway, folds down. Inhale, hands up, stand tall. And exhale, fold back down. Inhale halfway. If the other plank worked well for you, lower all the way down to Cobra, or you can try Chaturanga Dandasana, bending your elbows to 90 degrees, keeping your plank firm and strong, and then extending the arms with the shoulder blades back for a deep back bend. And exhale, fold over the toes. Drop your head down and find downward facing dog. Take a few breaths here. This is a good chance to open the shoulders and chest as the head drops through. You can walk your dog, bending one knee and stretching the opposite calf and ankle. Switching sides 2 or 3 times. Good. And then taking one foot to the outside of your hands, squeeze your shoulder and knee into one another so that we can build some strength here with the hip muscles, with the obliques. And just like that line of fascia we talked about is extending the whole front of your body, you can keep your chest lifted and extended. And you can add, without deepening the pose, a deeper stretch by flexing the back of your body, the back of your hip flexor, your glute, your hamstrings. So lift your knee and push back with your heel. These are all different ways to activate, ramp up, or gear down a posture. You can drop the knee. If you think that it'll be close enough, bend your elbows and try to find the ground. If it's a struggle to be down here, then walk it back up and keep squeezing your knee and shoulder together. We're going to go through a long stretching sequence here that capitalizes on the multifaceted stretching of our yoga postures. Heel toe across your mat so that you can lay your shin down on the ground. And notice if there's a lot of torsion, there's twisting in the knee joint. We want to avoid that, so you can point your toes and roll over more onto the shin, or you can flex your toes if that helps kind of send that torsion down into the ankle. And again, options are to stay up or to come down, but for today's practice, even if you're used to this at the end of your long runs, we're going to activate to get more stretch for our time held here. Pushing back through your heel. Maybe you can even inch your foot a little further back to get your hips closer to the ground. Notice if your body is trying to twist out of its natural alignment that we work so hard to hold in Tadasana and warrior sequence. Excellent. And then gradually inching your back leg forwards closer as you walk back up to hands. Take a big breath in, lift your hips, and exhale back to downward facing dog. If you want to flow through a sun salutation of vinyasa in between, you're welcome to, or hold the down dog for one more breath. Then we'll take this posture to the other side. Dropping into dragon pose, getting set up with our chest forward, shoulder and knee connection, pulling the hips forwards and down, using that forward lunge. Curl your toes under and flex up to straighten your body out like a plank. Then again, lunge and use your front leg active, squeezing into your shoulder to make your body stretch and split a little further. One more breath. Dropping back down, heel toe across the floor. And because I haven't been instructing lefts and rights, you probably did the side that's easier to stretch first. And we'll spend a little bit more time here setting up, getting into this, making sure we're safe, we're not adding pain. If there's pain, come out of it. Take a little break. You can always try this video again tomorrow and see how you feel then. Options to stay up, tall and aligned, or reach forwards and lay your elbows down and lift the back knee up to extend and flex your hamstring. So slowly, just as we came in, leaning back into down dog, another chance to walk it out and walk your feet up towards the front of your mat. So now, just like we practiced in Tadasana, we want to stack alignment with our knees under our hips. But this time in a kneeling position, we're looking for action and stability from our feet. And we're going to keep the toes furled under for adding a little bit more height in case you're ready to move on to the next variation of this posture. So take your hands and put them on the small of your back, sliding the fingers into some imaginary pockets. I wish I had gym shorts with back pockets, but not a lot of those to come by nowadays. This is called camel pose, Ustrasana, and again, fascial chains linking up all the front of your body to extend and access the deep connections with your psoas, your hip flexor. So this time, just opening the chest by bringing the elbows back, lifting the heart up with a tall spine, bracing through the middle so that all that connective tissue has tension. And then gently gaze up, tracing a line with your eyes over the ceiling, using your hands on your hips to make sure you're not going to spill soup out the front or the back. Good. And if you see the wall behind you, then you might have the opportunity for that next progression of reaching the hands, fingertips to heels, and pushing up. If your hips sag back, then go ahead and support your low back and maintain this variation. Flex your quads, spiral your inner thighs in and back, and breathe in through the nose, out through the nose. Slowly, slowly, slowly roll up so you don't see too many stars when you get to the top. Head stacks up last. And leaving the feet as they are, sit back in for our toe stretch. Just like the ballerina stretch, it's important to get both angles on your tendons, on your plantar fascia. So make sure that we've got a good spread of the toes here, and you can put a manageable amount of weight back onto the arches of your feet, onto the heels. It takes a minute for this one to warm up, so usually a minute or two is a good amount of time for the toe stretch. Try to maintain your posture, shoulders back and down, breathing through the nose. Good. This one's a really good thing to do in the morning to wake yourself up or after your run. Remember, when you're coming out of any pose, gentle, gentle, gentle. Sway your heels a little bit side to side, getting some movement back through the ankles. Tap out the feet. You get all the blood flow, and circle, circle the ankles. From here, we'll shift onto the hips. Swing your legs around in front of you for the closing floor sequence. Starting with a couple of spinal twists. The momentum that we carry running can add up to a lot of tension in the low back muscles that turn us and help balance our rotation so that running momentum goes forwards. So we do want to spend quite a bit of time with these twists. The first one is called half Lord of the Fishes, or half Ardha Matsyendrasana, and this is where it gets a little complicated, lefts and rights. So come with me, right knee in front, pull the knee up towards your chest, and you may feel some work on the outside of your thigh. That's your IT band. If it's tight, you're going to feel it right away. If it's too tight, step your foot out a little bit wider and use your right hand as a second spine. So it's not a kickstand, we're not leaning back. The right arm is going to be tight in next to your tailbone with a bend in the elbow to mirror the curve of your spine, and so that you can push a little bit higher if you find yourself starting to slouch back in the twist. Your left arm is going to be for your leverage, so you can start just by hugging the right knee. Look over your right shoulder and try to lift your tummy in and up so that you're not obstructed by the thigh. So again, double action here. Ooh, getting a lot of stretch through the glutes and IT area at the same time as we're twisting and stretching the muscles of the low back. And then gradually unwind, counter twist if it feels good. Don't do it if it hurts, and we'll switch sides. So the other consideration is making sure that you're planted and perched on your sits bones, the bones at the base of the hip bowl. Left arm behind, left knee up and over the right leg. Now, hugging is always the option. If you do have a little bit more flexibility, then you can use the whole arm with the elbow outside of the knee and bring your hand towards your ear. A few breaths in each twist should be adequate. We don't want to spend too long in these active twists. A minute is perfect, 30 seconds at a time if that's what you can do today. Keeping the action alive in that lift of the chest and turning around. One more breath. twist if it feels all right. And we'll go into this side for our next twist. Another seated twist. Again, listen to your body. If it hurts in the knee, bring the foot a little further out and try to have yourself anchored on your sit bones, turning to face the bent knee. That's going to give you the room to lift up and out and take the extended side angle and the side bending that we did earlier in our practice into the floor sequence. So you can use, again, arm for leverage. This is going to help you lift off your leg. It's not going to help you get closer or closer to your leg. We're making space in between the torso and thigh. Turning around, and this top arm, left hand can be behind the ear. That's going to give you enough extension through your rib cage. Try to keep active feet, so that foot out there is flexing the toes. Your bent knee is pushing against your leg. And if you're ready to reach right up and over, extend and get taller through the spine. And then reach as you exhale. Create activity. Flexing the front body. To stretch the back. One more breath on this side. This is called Parivrita Janu Sirsasana, or extended head to knee pose. Gradually come up. Come up first, then unwind your torso. Take your left leg out and your right knee in for the opposite side. Left arm pushes against and lifts your torso, lifts your waist up out of the corner of your hip. And then when you're ready, your variation, hand behind ear, hand right up to sky, or reaching up and forwards, eventually reaching towards the toe. But again, not losing that stretch, that lift from the waist in order to achieve the depth of reaching your toes. But you can try to get them a little bit closer, a little wiggle, a little flex. Look up under your armpit and breathe. Breathe out for longer than you breathe in now as you deepen the pose. With that slight restriction at the beginning and end of each breath. Guide yourself up. Bring yourself in. Good. And scooch forwards a bit with bent knees. You can guide yourself down. And we'll go through our last hip flexor extension. So align your feet about hip width apart, close enough to your hips that your fingers can tickle your heels. And then just take your hips up an inch, pushing the knees forwards as not to tense up your glutes. And use your hamstrings and arms. Now your hands can clasp. They don't need to. You can point your fingers at the ceiling if clasping your hands is asking a little too much of your range. But we want the shoulder blades to come together as close as you can. So you can lean either way to inch them in and feel balanced. As we lead with the hip flexors and come into this bridge. Preserve your spine and use your abs. As we open the hips and the shoulders this way. Push through your feet. And lift your chin. Take one more inhale. And then gradually meet the ground, one vertebrae at a time. And when your tailbone touches down, hug your knees to your chest. Rock side to side. And then let your left leg find the ground. And imagine you're standing. So active ankles, active arches, kneecap up, and then extend extend the right leg, flexed and held. If you have a strap or a resistance band, you can use that to make your arms longer and rest more of your shoulder against the ground. But if you don't have that on hand, just use your hands on the back of your thighs, back of your knee. If you're bendier and can keep your shoulders down and hold onto your calf, ankle, or foot, that's great too. Just stretching out the hamstring one last time and keeping that fascial extension of the leg to help guide the twist. Use your right arm to keep your shoulder grounded, plant it down 90 degrees from your torso, and then use your left hand to keep that leg extended as your hips roll to the left. And if your leg doesn't find the ground right away, then you can use an object, piece of furniture, pillows, to give yourself something to support the leg. This twist gives you a lot of bang for your buck as far as stretching the glutes, hamstrings, and posture muscles of your back. Now to come out of this twist, bend your right knee and guide your knee around in a big semicircle until it stretches out and your leg meets the ground. Left side, leg up, right leg is now standing, or imagine standing. Really active through the legs here. Relax through the spine and shoulders. Five to 10 breaths. Pulling your leg up just a little bit higher on each exhale. And this time your left arm anchors and your right arm guides the twist. As your left leg makes its way to the right, you can even turn your eyes to the left to involve your neck in this spinal twist. Breathe in for 4. Breathe out for 8. One more time. Good, bend your left knee. Roll your knee in a circle. And extend both legs. Open your arms away from your body. Open your feet wider than shoulder width apart. And let as many vertebrae find the ground as you can. If you're eagle-eyed, you may have noticed I lift my hips and roll my low vertebrae to the ground. Shavasana gives you rest and allows all of these different postures and sequences to settle, to integrate into your runner's body. So take a few breaths here. Stay as long as you need until your breath becomes effortless. When you are ready to get up, remember to get up really slow and hydrate more than you think you need after flexibility practice like this. Thank you for tuning in. From CFP Halifax, again, my name's Deva, fitness and sports instructor on our Fleet Fitness team. I wish you all the best in the miles to come.